welcome to another episode of Spritz of Wisdom. Let's begin like we do every time with my sip of the week. These are my highs and lows of the previous week living here in South Italy. Starting with the highs, the weather has been glorious, magnificent. All of the beautiful things that you can possibly imagine the weather has been. It has just been so lovely to soak up the sunshine, to be outside. And I do know that I am impacted by the weather. And I think this was partly why I decided to move to Italy, was because I was just done with like permanent grey skies in London as well. But essentially, the weather here has been so good. I've been spending lots of time outdoors. And even though we have a couple of days this week of rain that's predicted, after that, it looks to be a bit more settled again. So I think we finally arrived. No more weather updates for a few months, but I'm really, really happy. The weather really does impact you. I just think everything, even Italy, looks more beautiful with a bit of sunshine, right? Other highs of the past week, I am going to go and start Substack. Now, I often think I'm a bit crazy because I do so much. Consider I'm doing this, my business, and working full time. But Substack for me is something that I see great potential in because it's a platform that's having a bit of a moment. And I'm tired of missing out on those moments because I missed out on the virality of YouTube during the pandemic because I started my channel in 2021. So we were kind of coming out of the pandemic moment at that point. But also TikTok. I was never, ever interested in joining TikTok, but there was a point when it was really, really having its time and people were doing really well on that platform. Now Substack is in that phase. And Substack is something that really speaks to me because I love to write. I remember when I was a child, my mum's friend at the time read my palm and said that I had the writer's fork. So I've always known that I've had a love of writing. I remember I wrote this story when I was at secondary school about an elephant through the eyes of an elephant. And I remember that my English teacher was like amazed by what I'd written. And then funnily enough, I was never able to relocate the original manuscript. The school said that they lost it. Not a saw. I should probably look to see if it's ever been published. But the fact is, I love writing. And Substack is this. It's a platform to write. And so I was like, I want this to be like therapy for me, if you like, a space where I'm not going to use artificial intelligence. I'm not going to use anything to make it more efficient. I'm just going to do what I need to do. So stay tuned. I'm launching a letter series called Real Italy, but I'm putting the word together to kind of be a paraphrase of reality because you know that's what I talk about. But it's going to be different to kind of all the other content that you consume about me because this is just going to be my personal take on different experiences that I go through here in Italy, a weekly letter series completely free of charge. And I will put the link below in the show notes or up here if you're watching this on YouTube. If you want to go and follow me, the first edition will be coming out later this week. But I just feel really excited about it because I went for dinner with friends on Saturday and one of my friends was like, are you going to use artificial intelligence to help to kind of make it more efficient? And I was just like, no, like absolutely not. For me, I use artificial intelligence to repurpose content, to make other aspects of my workflow more efficient. But when it comes to Substack, that is my chance to use my brain and my creativity because I'm reading a lot, as I'm sure you all are too, of how we are losing our creativity to artificial intelligence, to the internet, to social media, whatever it may be. So that is my space where my creative juices are going to flow. And I'm really, really excited. So yeah, about time I started that kind of thing and got back into my writing days as well. So I'm really happy about that. Now, in terms of lows of the past week, do I have any real lows? In this period, no, I feel pretty okay. I mean, apart from what's going on in the world, of course, like it's really difficult not to be consumed by the energy of what's going on in the world at the moment and just to focus on your life. And for me, especially on keeping people motivated and inspired about moving to Italy, because I realize it's a really, really uncertain time. And even people here in Italy don't know what's going to happen. But there's something here where people are just carrying on, like doing what they have to do just to survive another day and go into the next. And I feel like that is the attitude to adopt. I think you have to pay attention to what's going on in the world. Of course, you're going to feel the ramifications of it through like rising costs, etc. There's a lot of uncertainty, absolutely. But if you live your life in that moment, you are missing out on what we have control of, which is right here, right now. A lot of what people are talking about is hearsay. We don't know what's going to happen. There is so much fake news on the internet at the moment that if you were to consume everything and believe everything, my goodness, you probably would never leave the house again. Like, you've got people stockpiling, people rationing, people stressing about things. And whilst there is a lot of logic to that, like, I don't necessarily think it is the best time to plan like long distance trips because of like fuel shortages and things like this. And also you've got to think about even trips within Italy, like the cost of fuel is so much more expensive. But I just think you have to do what makes you feel comfortable. I think there's so much scaremongering, so much uncertainty, and I just think you just have to be careful with that. So I guess that's kind of a bit of a low, because I'm trying to balance my need to understand what's going on in the world with not having my energy impacted at the same time. Which kind of leads into today's Full Pour episode, because today's Full Pour episode is a personal episode. This is dedicated to someone who has been on this journey with me for quite some time and consumed my content and have been part of my community, and has decided that maybe right now Italy is not the place for them. And it just got me reflecting a little bit, because I understand that with what I do, with my content and the reality that I share, that it might make some people understand that this is not the country for them. And I take great responsibility with what I talk about. I am not here to scaremonger. I am not here to tell you something's more terrible than it really is. I always try to give a balanced perspective, but I always do it with realism, because I really understand that it's so important to be real about life here, because the worst thing you can ever do as like a content creator or somebody in this area of responsibility, because we do have a degree of responsibility, we're putting content out, we're telling you what life is like in Italy. The worst thing you can do is paint the romance, and then people come here and realize it's completely different and regret their decision. Trust me, I would rather that people understand before they move that it's not the right place for them than make the move and realize it in the reverse way. And so I'm very careful with the content that I produce, but I also understand that Italy may not present itself as the right country for you. And I think if you've arrived at that conclusion, sometimes there can be a huge element of disappointment within you. Like, you think, goodness, I had this in my heart. I was set on moving to Italy for whatever other reason. This was the place that I really, really wanted to live in. But it doesn't mean that you failed in some way if you arrive at the point where Italy is not right now, because I'm a big believer in life that sometimes it's just not the right season. And this can be for everything. It can be for something as simple as reading a book. Sometimes you pick up a book and it's just like an effort to get to the next chapter, to turn the page. And then other times you pick up a book and it's just easy and effortless. That's because the book that you're finding difficult to read is not the right book for you to read at that season. But the other book clearly is. And this is the concept that I think applies to so many different aspects of life. When things are in flow, that is a sign that you are meant to do what you're doing. If you're constantly meeting resistance, if you're constantly finding difficulty, that too is a sign that maybe you need to course correct and try something different. And so I don't think that if you've realized now that Italy is not the country for you, that it means it's forever not going to be the country for you. It's just now, in this moment, it's not the right place. Because like a good book finds you when it's the right time for you to read it, Italy too will find you again when it's the right time for you to come here. And so I'm saying this now because not just as this personal message, because I care a lot about the content that I produce and the messages and the people that I come into contact with, but also I say it because especially now with the state of the world, you may very well be kind of questioning your idea of even moving abroad at all in this period, because there is just so much uncertainty. I want to say to you that if you've arrived at the point where you're pausing your ideas, you're not sure what to do, you think perhaps, it's better to not make a decision right now, it's totally okay. You've not failed. You are doing what works for you in this particular moment. And it's just a really, really important concept and something that I wanted to talk about today, because I almost feel in life it leans back into that whole failure thing, whereby if you don't follow through on what you said that you're going to do, you failed in some way. I really don't believe in that at all. I believe that life unfolds in a particular way. I'm very spiritual. I'm very empathetic. I really do believe that when something isn't working, it's directing you to something better for you in that particular moment, but it's not to say that you can't revisit that idea later on. And so I guess what I wanted to say in this episode, and as my chin, if you've had a dream of moving to Italy and it's proven to be really difficult, or you're just realizing that perhaps it's not going to work for your lifestyle right now and in the time of life that you're in this moment, it's not a failure. It's an experience, and it's maybe something that you can revisit again in the future with all of the wisdom that the following years will bring you, with you following the path that is meant for you in this time. And I feel like we need to lose as a society the stigma of failure or the stigma of changing ideas, course correcting, doing things differently. There's no shame in realizing that something isn't working and you've got to do something else instead. And I think that is what I really want to stress today. If you are in a moment in your life where you are like, okay, I can't really do this right now, I've got to focus on this, or it isn't what I thought it was going to be, I want to do this instead. There's no harm at all in realizing that you need to do things differently. In fact, I think it's probably one of the best things that you could possibly ever do, because Italy is a beautiful country. And if your decision is around whether or not to move to Italy, and you're kind of at the point where you think maybe now is not the best moment, now not being the best moment doesn't mean that it's forever not going to be the best moment. I think Italy speaks to your soul. And I get quite deep with this because it really does. And I think when the time is right for you, there will be this undeniable pull that you cannot break, that you cannot be swayed from, something that makes no sense to absolutely anyone, but makes sense to you. And that is the moment when you know that you are meant to move here. All the other feelings before are kind of testing the water a little bit, understanding if it's something you want to do, but it's that undeniable pull that will be the sign. So if you're in a moment of indecision in your life, what's pulling you? What do you need to listen to? What do you need to lean into? And what do you need to let go of? Because there's a hell of a lot of judgment that we carry on our shoulders sometimes when we realize that we need to course correct and change position. I will see you in the next episode.